You wake up before your alarm, not because you have to, because for the first time in years, your mind is quiet. The coffee tastes the same, the kitchen looks the same, the sun still rises over the same neighborhood. But one thing is different. Today, your paycheck doesn't matter. You check your phone anyway. Old habit. A notification flashes across the screen. Not from your boss, not from your bank. From your brokerage account. Another dividend. Small, almost forgettable, but it makes you smile. Because that tiny payment did something your first job never could. It arrived without asking where you were. You remember being 24, living in a tiny apartment where the refrigerator hummed louder than the television. You thought rich people bought yachts. Turns out, they mostly bought patience. Back then, you believed financial freedom had a magical number. 1 million, 5 million, something with a lot of zeros. Then, one afternoon, you opened a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet ruined everything. In the best possible way. Because retirement isn't really about money. It's about expenses. You don't need enough money to buy the world. You only need enough to keep your life running. That changes everything. Imagine your life costs $3,000 every month. Rent, food, insurance, gas, internet, the streaming services you swear you'll cancel next month. You won't. $3,000, $36,000 a year. Now ask a different question. Not, how much do I want, but how much has to show up every year? That answer changes your life. If your investments earn around 4% a year in reliable dividends, you divide one number by the other. 36,000 divided by 0.04. $900,000. That is your number, not somebody else's, yours. Some people hear that and close the video. 900,000? I'll never have that. Maybe, maybe not. But here's the funny part. Nobody starts there. Nobody walks into the gym and deadlifts 500 pounds. Well, one guy on Instagram claims he did. He also sells supplements, so take that however you want. The first dividend isn't exciting. Mine wasn't. It was $12. 12. I couldn't even buy a movie ticket. Not with popcorn, anyway. I stared at the notification longer than I should have. Not because of the amount, because nobody paid me to earn it. No customer, no boss, no overtime, no alarm clock. Just ownership. That $12 changed the way I looked at money forever. Because suddenly, money had learned my job. Work, come home, bring more money, repeat. It was a terrible employee at first. Slow, lazy, honestly, kind of embarrassing. But unlike most employees, it got better every year. Here's what nobody tells you. Your first $100,000 doesn't feel rich. It feels frustrating, because the numbers still look small. $4,000 a year. People hear that and laugh. 4,000? That's nothing. They're right, until the electric bill arrives, or the internet, or the insurance renewal. Then suddenly, it's something. Not everything, something. And something is where freedom begins. Meanwhile, your coworker buys a $70,000 truck. He gives everyone a tour during lunch. Leather seats, panoramic roof, 37 buttons nobody knows how to use. He asks if you want to sit inside. You do. It's nice, really nice. Then he says, only $800 a month. Only. That word has ruined more budgets than inflation ever could. You smile, tell him congratulations, and quietly drive home in your boring Toyota. It starts. The air conditioning works. Bluetooth occasionally forgets your phone, just to keep you humble. But every month, instead of paying $800 to the bank, you're buying another piece of your future. Nobody claps for that. Nobody posts it. Nobody notices. That's the advantage. Silence is surprisingly profitable.
A year goes by. Not dramatically. Nobody makes a movie about consistency, because consistency looks boring. It looks like skipping the expensive phone upgrade, making coffee at home, ignoring the sale that somehow ends every Sunday and starts again every Monday. Your portfolio grows anyway, not because you're smarter, because you stayed. One Saturday morning, your friend Jason calls. He's excited. Too excited. I found something paying 14%. 14? He says it like he just discovered buried treasure. You ask one question. Why? Silence. Then, I don't know. That's what everybody online is buying. That should scare you. If someone offers you $4 every year for every 100 you invested, that can make sense. If someone offers 14, you should immediately wonder, where is the extra 10 coming from? Money doesn't reproduce because somebody posted rocket emojis. It has to come from somewhere. Usually, your pocket. Just slower. Jason buys it anyway. You don't. 3 months later, the dividend disappears. The stock falls 38%. Jason calls again. This time, he isn't excited. He says the market is rigged. It isn't. Disappointment usually arrives wearing the clothes of unrealistic expectations. You keep buying the boring fund, month after month. You stop checking it every day. That's another strange thing about investing. The more often you look, the worse you feel. Imagine planting a tree, then digging it up every morning to see if the roots grew overnight. Eventually, you stop doing that, because growth likes privacy. Money does too. By the time you're 32, your portfolio quietly crosses $200,000. Nobody congratulates you. Nobody even knows. Your neighbors still think you're the guy with the old Toyota. Perfect. One evening, you're grocery shopping. Nothing exciting. Eggs, chicken, rice, coffee. You glance at the total. $211. Then you remember something. Your dividends this month were almost $800. You smile. Not because groceries are free. Because your investments quietly paid for 4 grocery trips without asking you to clock in. It's an odd feeling. The cashier has no idea. The person behind you in line doesn't either. They see the same shopping cart. You see something different. Tiny employees, thousands of them, working while you're deciding between crunchy peanut butter and smooth. You still choose crunchy. Some debates don't need spreadsheets. People imagine financial freedom looking dramatic. Private jets, champagne, a beach somewhere. Most of the time, it looks like sleeping well. It looks like saying no without feeling guilty. It looks like your car breaking down and not wondering if your checking account can survive it. Peace doesn't usually make headlines, but it quietly changes everything. Then something unexpected happens. You stop wanting to impress people. Not because you became humble, because you became busy building something they couldn't see. You realize luxury isn't buying expensive things. Luxury is ignoring expensive opinions. One afternoon, your manager announces promotions. Everyone starts comparing salaries, guessing bonuses, counting who won. You join the conversation for a minute. Then you excuse yourself. Not because you're better, because you've started measuring wealth in a completely different currency. Freedom. And freedom never fits neatly onto a paycheck. Your portfolio keeps growing, slowly, patiently, like it always has. The funny thing about compound interest is that one day, it starts looking like magic. The truth? It was never magic. It was just time. A few years pass. You stop checking your portfolio every morning, not because you stopped caring, because you finally trusted it. That's the strange thing about building wealth. At first, every dollar feels like an emergency. Later, it just becomes part of the furniture. Quiet. Always there. One Friday afternoon, your company schedules another all-hands meeting. You already know what it means. Nobody calls a meeting at 4 o'clock to announce free pizza. Your manager walks in, smiles too much. You immediately know. Budget cuts. Departments restructuring. Positions being eliminated. The room changes. People stop making eye contact. Someone starts tapping their foot. Another person keeps refreshing LinkedIn under the table. Fear has a sound. It sounds like silence. Names begin getting called, one after another. Some leave angry. Some leave crying. One guy laughs. The kind of laugh people make when reality arrives too fast. Your name never comes. You keep your job. Everyone congratulates you. You smile. But something inside you surprises you. You realize you weren't scared. Not because you're fearless, because your life no longer depends on one person's decision. That realization is worth more than any raise. Later that evening, you drive home. Traffic barely moves. The man beside you is pounding his steering wheel, late for something. Maybe work, maybe life. You don't know. You turn off the radio. You roll the window down. For the first time in years, you're not trying to get somewhere. You're just driving home. There's a difference. When you get home, you sit on your porch. No phone, no laptop, just a glass of water. A bird lands on the fence, stays for a minute, flies away. Funny, you never noticed birds before. Turns out, they've been there the whole time. You were just too busy chasing Mondays. Your phone buzzes. Your niece sent you a picture. She lost her first tooth. You smile. Then another notification appears. Dividend received. You don't even open it. You already know what it says. That's when it hits you. Years ago, you thought dividends were about replacing your paycheck. They aren't. They're about replacing your fear. The fear of saying no. The fear of losing your job. The fear of an unexpected bill. The fear that one bad month could undo 10 good years. Money doesn't solve every problem. Anyone telling you that is probably selling a course. But it does something else. It gives you space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to choose. And choices are what freedom has always looked like. People still ask you the same question. So, how much do you actually need to live off dividends? They expect one number, one magical target, one secret. There isn't one. A single person in Kansas doesn't need what a family of 5 in San Francisco needs. Some people are perfectly happy with $40,000 a year. Others somehow burn through $200,000 and still complain. The real question was never, how much money do I need? The real question is, what kind of life am I trying to buy? Because every unnecessary expense is another year you have to work. Every unnecessary upgrade is another alarm clock. Another Monday. Another meeting that should have been an email. One day, you'll receive a dividend. Maybe it's $20. Maybe it's $200. Maybe it's $2,000. Don't laugh at the first one. Respect it. Because every oak tree was once an acorn that looked too small to matter. The first payment isn't buying your freedom. It's proving freedom exists. Everything after that is just repetition. Patient, boring, beautiful repetition. And one morning, years from now, you'll wake up, not because your alarm went off, because your life
no longer belongs to one. And that's the day you'll realize you were never really building a dividend portfolio. You were building your mornings back.